welcome to another episode of Momentos and Voices. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking and having a great conversation with Antonio Santana from Wellness Empowered. Antonio, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
I'm super excited about our conversation. I know
Yeah.
we don't really know each other very well. We've just kind of met.
First time meeting, yeah.
We've met through mutual friends, and I know that you're doing some amazing work for the military community,
Veterans
as
and first
veterans,
responders, man.
exactly. And so I'm very excited to speak about everything that you've been through that's gotten you to where you are now, and
Yes, ma'am.
everything that you're doing for these communities and mental health in general.
Yes,
So I know you have a podcast of your
Salute,
own.
man. Yeah, that's actually how everything kind of got started, was through a podcast and just kind of talking about, what our community is actually facing. So what our first responders, what our vets are facing. So yeah, that's how all of this actually got started.
And I know that poetry has been something huge for you and something that has really gotten you through your hardest times, through your darkest moments.
Yes, ma'am.
So I know you also start your podcast always with
Yes.
a poem. So I would love for you to start our podcast or this podcast with
Yeah,
a poem, please.
Yes, thank you. But I would love to say that, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me come in and talk about what we're doing. Poetry has been one of, I actually have to say it's my saving grace. It's actually what kind of helped me be more vulnerable. As a ex-police officer and military, like that is not taught to us very well. So poetry actually helped me kind of really, really show how I'm feeling, or even for myself, like it gave me a understanding of my emotions that I was running from. So this one's called Forged in Fire.
Okay.
I was 20 when I learned the weight of a rifle, the sounds of footsteps on foreign soil, the way death lingers in the air, thick and silent. I saw life slip away in the space of a breath, and I wondered if purpose was just another word for surviving what others could not. Later, I traded the desert for the city streets, a badge in place of a uniform, but the ghosts followed, shadows stretching long under streetlights, faces blurred in the rear view. I carried their stories, the ones no one wanted to hear, the ones that made sleep feel like a war of its own. Pain carves deep, but if you let it, it shows you what's underneath the flesh, what you were made of all along. Purpose isn't found in quiet places, not in the absence of struggle, but in the fire, in the breaking, in the nights that hollow you out, until all that's left is what was true from the start. I thought I was made for war. I thought I was made to protect. But maybe, just maybe, I was made to understand pain, to sit with it, to learn its language, so I can guide others through the dark. God never promises easy. He never promised clear roads or light burdens. He promised purpose, woven through every scar, written in the losses, the grief, the doubt, a story unfolding in the hands of the one who never wastes pain. And maybe that's what life is. Not answers, not clarity, but the willingness to keep walking, trusting that every step, every wound is shaping you into the man you were meant to be.
Wow. That's very, very, very powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So I think that, through those words and through that poem, you touched on so many different things, and I'm sure that it's a reflection of your life and the walk that you have been through.
Yes.
You spoke about God.
Yeah.
You spoke about struggles, and really you spoke about finding the true meaning of life and finding that purpose and finding yourself. So I want to start there with you. I want to know who Antonio is.
Yeah.
Where are you from? Hi, tell me just a little background information.
Yeah.
Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in a very small town. It's called Crystal City, Texas. It's about an hour and a half, 2 hours away from here.
Yep.
It's a farm town. Nobody in my family really served. I think we had one police officer that served. He was in the public service type of position, whatever like that, but nobody else served. All my family were all farm workers. We all worked in the fields. Um, so joining the military or being a cop or anything like that was not at all on my horizon. I didn't feel like that was at all like what I wanted to do.
Okay.
But it was 9/11 that, of course, many of us who have served, that was our calling. And 9/11 happened, and I remember I was a senior in high school when it happened. And we were all in our classroom on a small little TV looking at the towers, falling down. And in all reality, I felt something like urge inside me, but I really didn't know like what that meant, right? And I went my senior year, moved over here to San Antonio, tried to go to college and everything like that. Didn't make it. Went back to my hometown, and I was literally doing nothing. I was working in the fields. I was doing all this, and I was like looking at my life, and I'm like, what? This is not what I want.
How old were you at the time?
I was around 19, going to 20. Yeah.
Okay.
So like I was 20. Matter of fact, I was 20 years old.
Okay.
I realized that this is not the life that I want.
Right.
And then right after that, it was the invasion, the first, push into Iraq. And I remember looking in the news and seeing, the tanks going in and everything. And I was just like, I need to be a part of this. So I remember we were in the fields working, and I told my brother, because I was like, I was in there. I was like, my life is not going anywhere here. Like I felt like I was becoming the statistics of that, my hometown. My hometown, I love the people there, but it is really a hole. Like it sucks people in, and then you live in this life of just bare minimum. And there's no wanting more or anything like that. It's just the bare minimum. And I was falling in that trap, right? So I was like, I need to do something. So I don't want that life. So I decided that my friend was going to the Marine Corps, and I called him up, and I'm like, you know what? Give me the number of your recruiter. I'm gonna call him up. So I called him up, and at that time, because you knew you were going to war right there, like my Marine Corps recruiter was like, where are you at? I'm in Crystal City. Like, I will be there today. So like started the process and everything like that, and I went into the Marine Corps. But the thing about it is that I saw my life, what it would have turned out if I would have stayed there, and I was willing to put myself in a wartime situation, then end up having that life.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to become something that I would have regretted in my life. And it's so easy to fall in these traps where you're just like, what's the bare minimum? You're living okay, comfortable.
Zone,
yeah. I did not want that.
Okay.
So joined the Marine Corps.
Which is definitely not comfortable. Which is a big, I'm sure it was a big step out of your comfort zone.
It was very, very much so. I mean, every day that we were in boot camp, it was like, yeah, you're going to war, you're going to war. And sure enough, it happened. And
did you, at the moment, and I'm don't mean to interrupt you, but at the moment when they were telling you these things, did you understand fully what that meant? Or was it, you were just kind of there like, okay.
It's like, I wrote a poem once it's called The Weight of the Oath. Like, we don't truly understand what that weight of the oath is. When we raise our hand and we say, we're here to defend and all of that, like, we don't understand the depth of those statements. Like, there's a lot more to that. And going into the Marine Corps, first off, I went into the Marine Corps because I wanted a tough position. Like, I wanted the Marine Corps to, sorry for all the rest of these guys that are in the military. Marine Corps is the best, and it's one of the hardest ones. And I wanted a challenge.
Okay.
And the thing is like every day, whenever they would tell us like, "Hey, you're going to war. You're going to war," it's like you've painted a picture of what war looks like,
Right.
but when you get there, it's like magnified by 20, right? And so going young, I was 21 when I went into war. It was an experience that you will never forget, I guess. And the thing about it is that you have these experiences, your life and death experiences at such a young age when you're not even fully developed mentally to be able to look at those moments and like process through them, right? And one of the biggest things of like my journey is that I went from a Hispanic household where talking about your emotions, talking about anything is like forbidden. So
Yeah.
it's like, you don't talk about stuff like that. It's like you're local, all this stuff, whatever like that, and it's just like it puts you in this whole thing and of like, okay, I gotta shut up and just, continue to do my job or continue to just live, and you see your family, like the rest of my uncles and my brothers and stuff like that, like they utilized alcohol to be their coping mechanism. And then you go into the Marine Corps, and that same foundation that you learn to process through these things are the same rooted foundations that are there. So then you kind of fall back into that as well, and you just shut up and you don't do
Just
anything
take
and
it.
you just drink. Then I got out of the Marine Corps, then went into law enforcement. Sure, it's the same thing. It's the same playbook over and over again. So it's like you go into the military. I myself, I had a terrible childhood, and going into the Marine Corps, I was trying to find myself. I was trying to discover who I was, right? And going into the military, I thought that was going to help me, but in all reality, all it did was add more questions, right? And it gave me more of this, and it also it it strengthened these coping mechanisms that were negative, right? It just strengthened it. And you went into the military already with trauma already in your pack. And then you go into the military, you pack on some more trauma in there. Military does not teach you how to process through your emotions. They teach you how to pack your pack and shove everything in there, but they don't show you when it's time to unpack that pack. So I get out of the military, go into law enforcement with the same pack, and start going and witnessing all the things that I did in law enforcement. And there's never a time when that pack gets taken off and it start to unpack these traumas that you've gone through, and it just becomes a weight that's unbearable.
And why was your automatic step going from military to law enforcement? Is that something common? Is that something
No,
that okay?
it's when I got out, it's like you feel like the sense of purpose has been removed. You remove a uniform away from you, and when you've put all your identity into that uniform, when you take that uniform on, it's like, off. It's like, well, then who am I now? And then so you're trying to discover who you are. And for me, getting out of the military, going back to my hometown, it was like drinking every single day. It was all of this, and I was falling back into that trap of what my life would have been, if, even prior to going to the Marine Corps. So it's like, what did I do all that for? And I'm falling back on the same track, to lead to this life that I know I don't
That you didn't
want.
want in the
Yeah.
beginning, yeah.
So that's why I was like, okay, what else can I do here?
To give you that
And
sense of pride, that
pride,
sense of
purpose, and
purpose,
all
yeah.
of that. So I was like, well, be a cop, right? So I went from I started off as a correctional officer. I went from that to law enforcement and to investigations. And with all of that, like there's a lot of steps in here that I'm kind of skimming over, but like, I just felt that like, if I just put on another uniform, then I will know who I am. If I get all of these different positions, investigator, narcotics, all of this stuff, whatever like that, then I'll know who I am.
Was it always an internal battle with yourself of having that sense of purpose, or do you think it also like the other people's opinions affected? Like, is having other people recognize you, be like, oh, you were in uniform, and that comes with like a little bit of like, oh wow, he's a police officer or he's in the military, and you have all these like people recognizing you in a way. Did that play any role into what you were feeling at the moment?
Yeah. So goes back to my childhood. Um, I was I was I was not loved as a child.
Okay.
So there was always this self-worth problem with me. And me wearing a uniform and everything, like, it gave me self-worth for myself.
Right.
That doesn't mean I loved myself. It gave me it gave me a false image of love for myself.
Right.
And I was a workaholic. When I met my wife, I met her when I was transitioning from being a correctional officer to become a cop. I gave her a little bit of insight into my life, and she was just like, man, and this is no ill to her or anything like that, but like, she's like, man, like, for being all the stuff that you've gone through. You're not that messed up. So in the back of my head, I always felt that I needed to keep that image for her. So it's like I showed her a little bit, and she said this. So I was like, I need to keep everything abreast and not show everything
Everything
that's really
else.
going on.
Right.
Right. So I went through life doing that, and became a cop. And one of the things that I loved about my wife is that she gave me this understanding of there's more than you can do here. Everything of what you've been told as a child of you're not being smart, you're not good looking, all of these things, whatever like that, that I was fed as a child, she combat every single thing. So I got my bachelor's degree, and then she's like, you're still smart. Why don't you go back to school? And I applied for my master's degree, and I didn't think I was going to get in, and I did, and I excelled, and I passed,
What
and
did
I
you get your
graduated.
bachelor's and master's in?
I got my bachelor's in criminal justice, and I got my master's in computer forensics.
That's awesome.
So none of my family at that point did have anything like that. So I remember, but this is the thing though, is that it's so easy to use education as a way of getting your mind to not be silent. So I used education as a way of like keeping my mind going,
And not really figuring
not
out
figuring out
going
what
on.
was going on.
Yep.
So my wife, after I graduated, she's like, "You're done with school, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm done." But then, like, sitting there, I started internalizing, and I started thinking, and these voices that I had that, would always constantly tell me these negative things, they got louder and they got louder. And I'm like, I can't do this. So I applied for my doctorate degree. And when I got accepted, my wife was like, when did you apply? And it's easy to use education as a way of like, well, babe, I want to be the director of our agency. You can use educate. You can't, it's not like using alcohol or anything like that.
Right.
Like it's
right.
it's something
It's a positive thing.
it's a positive thing, a
Sure.
productive thing. So I started to go to school, and then this is like where everything falls into what I am doing. I remember I was going to school. Our daughter was, I believe she was 2 years old. My wife was pregnant with our second daughter.
Okay.
And I had a big investigation that but I had a bunch of assignments that I had to go to for school, everything like that. I remember I was driving back from work, and then these mechanisms that I utilized to be able to quiet those voices, all of a sudden they were gone. And I couldn't. And I was driving back, and all of a sudden everything just hit me all at once, and it was just on my chest. I couldn't breathe. Pulled over on the side of the road, and every mechanism that I had to stop from doing the ultimate decision that you can't take back were gone. And all of a sudden I found myself with my service pistol on my lap, and nothing inside of me wanted to stop. Everything wanted to go.
Yeah.
And as I sat there and I raised my service pistol, about to make a decision that I could never turn back, my wife sent me a picture of my daughter.
Oh.
And that picture right there is what stopped me. I realized at that moment that I wasn't ending my pain if I would have done that. I'm transferring it over to my daughter and for my unborn daughter. And I couldn't do that to them. I couldn't leave them with nothing but questions of why daddy left. So even to this day, it still gets me. But this is the reason why I do the things that I do, because every time I think back of that moment, I feel as if it didn't happen this way, but I feel as if I was on top of a tree with a noose around my neck, and I jumped off the tree, and the tree branch broke, and I lived.
Yeah.
And for a brief moment, I wanted to live, right? I remember when I put my service pistol back and I took off back to the house. And I remember that the first thing, when I walked through the door, I heard my daughter saying, "Daddy's home." And it broke me. Like, it broke me. I went upstairs and I pretended that I had some schoolwork that I had to do, but I cried and I cried. And the thing is that I felt at that moment that I was about to do something and they didn't even know. But in the back of my head, like I didn't want to go down there and face them because I felt like they could see it on me.
Yeah.
Like they could smell that just happened. As much as that happened, I didn't quit my job. I stayed at my job for another year.
Wow.
And finally, my wife gave me the ultimatum: quit your job or you lose your family. And I quit. But the thing is that when I quit, I went, I went to the VA to get help, right? Thinking that they were gonna welcome me with open arms. Like, man, we've been wanting you to be here, right? Like that's the thought. Even though I had heard everything negative of the VA, right? First thing that they did when I walked in, there was like, yeah, we don't have therapy for a while. We can shove pills down your throat, and just to kind of keep you good. So I'm like, you want to numb me further so that I can't, I want to process through what I feel. Like I've been told all my life to just shut up and like continue to push forward. And now I'm coming in here and you're telling me that
You took that step.
yeah, I can't talk to somebody and you're just going to shove pills down my throat. But I took it because I myself, it's like I have a family. And I need to show them that I want to be here. I need to show them that I'm going to be better, right? But how many people walk through those doors and don't have that? How many of those people walk through those doors, don't have a wife that's telling them, I need you to be better for us. I need you to be a better father. I need you to be a better husband for me. How many of them don't have that? And they just walk back out. I was like, no, like I went through the process, found myself a good therapist outside of the VA, paid for it on myself, and I started healing.
And at that moment, were you doing this for your family, obviously, but did you already realize that you needed it? Like, was it a decision that you wanted to go through therapy, or were you really just doing it because you didn't want to lose your family?
I was doing it because I didn't want to lose my family.
And at what point did you realize it was something that you needed?
Man, thank you for asking me that. I had a session one day, and uh, she asked me about my incidents in Iraq, about the times that I was in IED blast, about the time we saw dead bodies, all this stuff, and I could talk about it. Like it affected me, but it didn't, not as much. And then she switched the conversation, and she was like, "When was the last time your mom told you she loved you?" And even now, it still gets me. It killed me. And that's when I realized that I really needed this. My I remember I was at church one time, and I've talked about this a lot. And there was this lady in front of us. And she had her hands raised and everything like that. And she was like, you can see it in her that she felt something and she could feel it and see it. Here I had my beautiful wife right next to me, my three beautiful, gorgeous girls, and I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't feel no connection to them. That's when I knew that I needed to change. I needed to figure out what was internally wrong with me so that I can connect to the people that I'm supposed to be connected to. I brought these three beautiful girls into this world, so I have an internal connection to them, greater than any friendship, anything that you're going to have. And I can't feel connection to them. What was wrong? So it became a thing for me my mission to figure out, how can I be that father that I always wanted? How can I be that husband that I wish my father would have been to my mom? How could I be that if I continued down this road that I was going through, that I was never going to be that? I was going to be a split image of my father. So I really did a lot of work on myself.
You mentioned being in church. Was religion something that was always present in your life, or was it something that you found through therapy and through your wife, or how did you find religion?
So I was was church hurt, like a lot of people are from growing up. And when I was in Iraq, I prayed. But when I was a child, when I was in high school, I gave my life to God a long time ago. Like I felt His presence, and I gave my life to Him a long time ago. But then I went away from Him. I felt that I could handle my own life. I have control of my life. I determine all of this, everything like that. So I ran away from Him. Faith now to me is a big thing. I gave my life back to God 8 months ago. I remember I went to CBC, and the first day going to a mega church like that, I had every negative thought going in, walking into that place.
Yeah.
But right when I walked in, praise and worship was going, and I just felt it in my soul. And then Pastor had got up there and started preaching, and I'm like, did you know that I was coming today? Did you know that everything of what you are speaking of is every question, everything that is just lingering in my soul right now?
Wow, that's
And I gave my life to Him that day because I was like, man, if one of the biggest things is I think we go through this idea. We look at life and what society says beauty is, what society says you're doing good, all of this stuff, and you try to become that. And then all of a sudden you look at yourself, it's like you're not good enough, you're not doing enough, you're not doing all these things. But when you hear His word, it's like, you are perfect.
Yep.
You are perfect. In all of your imperfections, you are perfect. This image of what you're trying to achieve will never come. That's how I feel. When I heard that, it's like you have these things where you kind of know already, but when you hear it, sometimes it's like you hear it for the first time, and it's like, holy crap, you know what I'm saying? It's like, so yeah, so I religion has become a big thing for it, but I can't say religion. Faith has become a big thing. I baptized my wife, and I baptized my daughter, my youngest daughter, and my goddaughter. Oh man, that was the most beautiful thing. I remember I was holding my wife's head over the water, and I looked at her. I'm just like, we went into this world as friends. Then after that, we became husband and wife. Then we became father and mother to our children. And here I am putting her head into the water, about to accept the biggest thing, that we are a child of God. And we forget that. We forget that He is our Father. So I told my wife that was close to our wedding night and wedding date and the birth of our children. That was probably the third best time.
How long have y'all been married?
14 years.
Wow.
14 years. Trust me, it's been up and down. I'm not an easy person. But that's the thing though. Like when we started everything, like our nonprofit and our company and all of that stuff, whatever like that, writing, my wife said, she's like, I can see you found your purpose. And that's exactly what I write about. It's just like, once you take off those uniforms, it's like, I felt as if I was a tool that wasn't being used. But I was like, I can't go back into law enforcement. I can't go back into the Marine Corps. I can't do all these things, but what can I do? I have severe PTSD with traumatic brain injuries. There's certain things that I can't do because of my anxiety, my depression, all of these things, whatever like that. But what can I do? I can utilize the moments, this pain and trauma that I've gone through in my life. I can utilize to help others. So now my wife is like, she's like, you've found your purpose. And that's why I've been doing what I'm doing now.
And so right now, through your nonprofit, through your podcast, and also now with the app, you're helping other people that were in or that are in similar situations that you were in, go through those struggles. And so you mentioned that when you finally made the decision to speak about your feelings and get the help that you needed, it wasn't necessarily the response that you were looking for. And so I'm assuming that with the services that you offer and the help that you offer,
Yeah.
you're trying to be that difference.
Yeah. So we've been fully operational. So our nonprofit is called Frontline Strong. So we've been fully operational for about 4 years. We've helped 350 plus individuals get free therapy. So we help first responder veterans and their family members,
Okay.
and we've helped active duty members as well. But when we got started, a local police department in the area was having one of the highest suicide rates in the entire country. And it, to me, seeing those issues that were going on and having my own story, I understood the problem. So I was like, but how can we make it easier for these guys to get help? So it was just a thought at that moment, but I was like, well, what if we created a nonprofit where we provide free mental health services where they don't have to jump through hoops like I was trying with the VA. I don't have to utilize the insurance. I don't have to, all of these barriers that these individuals, a lot of them are true barriers that they put up, but sometimes there are our own barriers that we put up so that we won't get the help.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's just like, okay, bro, like all you have to do is fill out that, what I think it's like 6-question questionnaire. You don't have to bring me any form of ID saying you are a cop. You don't have to bring me your DD-214. You don't got to bring any of that. All you need to do is say you are a cop or you're a veteran, and I will provide you the help. Now it's up to you to determine if you really want that help or not.
Yeah.
So when we started, like I said, like local police department was having one of the highest suicide rates in the entire country. And I remember that as some of those family members that had lost their loved ones to suicide, and I talk openly about my situation, they wanted to talk to me because they had questions. They had questions of why their husbands did this. Why did they go off and do this? That, why couldn't I have loved him more? Why couldn't I have been enough to solve those issues for him? And so like the answers to them, and I'm like, I can only give you my perspective. I can only give you where I was at in my life. It's not going to solve the answers. It's not going to answer all your questions that you're having right now. But talking to them and hearing their grief. It's a grief like it's a grief that can't even put words to it. And seeing the kids, everything like that, killed me. So I was like, what else could I do? Like, what else can I do? And I remember I was talking to a really good friend of mine, and he was like, Antonio, you can't save them all. You can't. And I was like, I know I can't, but I can try and get as many people that are suffering. One of the biggest things is that as a man, we're told to hold our feelings and not talk about them. We're told to drive on, not feel, but then we're supposed to feel. You're not connected to us. You're not this. So it's like you want all of this, but the guy is like, well, what do I do? I can't even find
one from me.
Yeah, what do you want? I can't even find the words to even describe how I feel because I've been told to shut up all this time. So what do I do? So through my poetry, I started writing, and a lot of the guys that I would read my poems, I was like, bro, how are you in my head right now? I wrote a poem for my daughter, my oldest daughter. It's called Love Dad. And I had so many guys on TikTok that were like, can you send me that? Can you send me? I want to read that to my daughter at her wedding. I want to put that on my daughter for her bedroom. Because we've been told not to feel. We've been told to just shut up and just be this stoic individual that doesn't feel. And there is room for that. I tell my friends this. I was like, yeah, I'm in touch with my feelings, but bro, if I need to do my work, I can do my work. So it's a good combination of having your understanding of your emotions and being a protector. And if you look at olden time and Roman times, warriors were poets. Warriors were painters. They were sculptors. They were all of this. They were in touch with their feelings. They knew how to create something beautiful. They knew how to write a poem. You have to be in touch with your emotions to write a poem. So it's like, where did we go from a society that was beautiful in creating literature and creating this beautiful writing to going now being in this? No, you just got to be stoic. If you are a man, you are this. When did we do that transition? And what has happened when we've created that, when that transition's happened? We lose connection with our families. We lose connection with our wives, with our kids. Those are the things that I'm talking about. It's like, you can be a man and be a protector, be all that, but you can also have a soft spot where you can be able to write a love letter to your wife, or write a poem about how much you love your daughter. What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
So writing has been, I say it's my saving grace. And actually, my therapist was the one that actually saw it. She would tell me to write journals, my journal entries. And then she was like, I want you to write them and then come back and read them, whatever like that. And I was like, all right, cool. So I did that. And then she was like, your journal entries are like poetry. And I'm like, no, they're not. She's like, they're like poetry. And it wasn't until I had one of my really good friends that was going through something, and we were at the gym, and I started talking to him, and I'm like, man, I was like, look, I just wrote this. And that was extremely vulnerable of me, because I'm like, I'm sharing a big piece of me here.
Yeah.
I'm
Especially
like,
with
with another man
friend. Yes.
at the gym, in the locker room.
Yes,
So
yes.
I shared with him that poem. He read 3 lines and started crying.
Wow.
And he's like, how are you in my head right now, man? And then that guy, he's an older gentleman, but he's gone through a lot. And I've always offered therapy for him, always. And he's like, no, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. So finally one day he called me up and he's like, Antonio, I need to go. So I arranged everything. I sent him the thing. And we provide 12 free therapy sessions.
Okay.
So he went and did all 12. And then afterwards, he did another 10. So and the last time I saw him, I was like, he was coming out of the gym and he was walking towards me. And then he sees me and he was just like smiling. I was like, brother, are you smiling here? Am I seeing a smile on your face?
That's awesome.
And he's like, man, it's like life's been good.
That's great.
Life's been good. So I know that what I'm doing, as hard as it is, trust me, it is hard.
I can't imagine.
Running a nonprofit, me, myself, and I, just like our podcast, me, myself, and I.
Yes, yes.
It's extremely difficult. But, man, I have seen so many people, man. So many people. I'll share one more story with
Yes,
you.
please.
I had this mom. She found me on TikTok. And she was about to take her life. And somehow, the grace of God, she clicked on TikTok and one of my videos popped up.
Wow.
And she watched every single video. She sent me a message and she's like, I don't know if you're going to read this, but I just want to let you know you saved a life today. And I reached back out to her and I'm like, give me your phone number. I want to talk to you. I want to chat with you. So she's from Mississippi. And then I'm like, what do you need? I can't provide you therapy services because you're out of state, but what do you need? She's like, I want to go to an inpatient care facility. And I really need to find a way to, be a better mother. She's a mother of 5.
Wow.
Mother of 5. And she was about to take this ultimate step. She can't take back. So I was like, she was a cop for 20 years. I was like, look, I know a great inpatient care facility in California called First Responder Wellness. I was like, I will help you get there. So I called my friend who's a really amazing guy. I called him up and he's like, let's get it done, man. So we talked, everything like that. We were able to find the money to pay for her deduction, her deductible, everything like that. She went down. She was there for 6 months.
Wow.
And when she got out, she's like, I don't know if I'll ever meet you, but I just want you to know that I am the wife that I've always wanted to be. I am the mother that I've always wanted to be. And it's because you sent me that message. When I say that things get hard, raising cash, raising money and everything like that, like it's hard. But moments like that are what keeps me going.
Yeah.
There's a ugly ending to this. She ended up getting fired from her job because we know really it's because of the mental health aspect. They use some other technical way to get rid of her. But then she created her own nonprofit.
Wow.
She created her own nonprofit.
That's awesome.
So it's
That's great.
little things like that is what
Makes it worth it.
makes it all worth it. You know.
That's awesome. And so you were before we started the podcast, we were kind of talking a little bit, and you were telling me about the app that you're about to get launched. And just by the little things that you told me and showed me, I think it's something that's really hasn't really been done. I mean, at least not something that I've done, especially that one-on-one, really caring for that patient and really having that sense of community. Why is that so important? Not just, I mean, obviously in the mental health aspect, but in our world as it is, I mean, we all need that community. But why did you decide to implement that into the app?
So the app is called Wellness Empowered, we for short. One of the things is like I had another company that had approached me. They wanted to do some type of a device that was going to be for like helping people with nightmares and all this stuff. Listen to what they were going to create what they had created. And I didn't like it in that I suffered from sleep. Like I couldn't go to sleep and stay asleep. And I'm like, you're going to wake people up from a nightmare and you think that that's going to help suicide? I'm like, that's going to push them further that way because how are they going to fall back asleep? So like I had all these questions in my head. So I asked him, I was like, hey, would you mind if I kind of tinker around with this and maybe create something? And it's like, yeah. If you want to, they really wanted to utilize the vets that we had in our program.
Okay.
So I sat down, I thought about it, and then I was at Black Rifle Coffee, and I started looking at proactive approach to suicide prevention, and I started looking at all these products that were out there that were supposed to be for proactive approach to suicide prevention, and they were all reactive in nature. They were all putting the burden on the individual to make a judgment call at the worst time. You know, like how it was for me. If it wasn't for my wife sending that picture, I wouldn't be sitting here, right? So it's like, how can we bring somebody, pull them away from that edge, right? So I started looking at it and I was like, man, all of these is putting the burden on the individual to make a judgment call, to call 988, to call somebody, whatever like that. What if the system calls you? What if somebody is able to track how you're doing and call you? So I started looking at biometric information. Biometric information is in our phones all the time. We're already offering it for free.
Yes.
Already offering it for free, but it's stagnant. It's just sitting there, right? So I'm like, well, what can we do that we can utilize the biometric information and feed it to therapists or like a peer support, somebody like that. So initially, my idea was going to be a wearable device. I was going to kind of go with the same concept that they had because they were developing a wearable device. So I was about to go pitch them this idea. And one of the guys in our company, he's like, well, just tell me about it. And I started telling him about it. And he's like, it's a really great idea, man. He's like, why don't we create that? He's like, I was like, man, I don't have the cash to do something like that. So he's like, don't worry about it. We'll find the money. Well, I'll put some of the money up. So I was like, okay. So one of our other team members, name is Carl. He came on and he's kind of done apps before and everything like that. And he listened to what we were saying. He was like, man, I love that idea. But what if instead of it being a wearable device, why don't we create an app? So then that's how the whole idea started. But it was like, I was like, how can I utilize this biometric information that's just stagnant there? And how can I provide it to therapists and peer support so that they can have a better understanding of your daily life?
That's great.
How many times do we go to therapy? How many times do we go to therapy? Like once,
Yeah.
twice a month, whatever like that. That's the only interaction you have with a therapist. So there has to be somebody in the middle. So a therapist can't be there all the time. So how can we help a therapist as well? So what we looked at was sleep, mood, your exercise, so for movement, your steps, stuff like that, and then also like your goals.
Okay.
So our application has 3 different apps. So you have a user's app, you have a peer support app, and you have a therapist app, and they're all interconnected.
Okay.
So you go to sleep, you have your wearable device like your Oura Ring or whatever like that. It's tracking in all your information and it's feeding it real time to therapists and to peer support. What we created an algorithm that's associated individually to you. So we create a 7-day baseline for you. If you start deviating away from your 7-day baseline, then it will trigger, and that trigger will be sent to your peer support. Those trigger points are ways to start conversation with the individual, just to make sure they're doing okay. One of the biggest things of what our darkness does, and what, depression and anxiety, all these things, what it does is it feeds us this reality that's not true, right? So it pulls us into this isolation where it can isolate us and just feed us these negative thoughts. So what if we were able to bring in somebody that can give you like, hey, brother, like, how are you doing? I care about you. I'm hoping that you're okay. All of this, these words of affirmation, these words of comfort, love, all this stuff like that, that can pull you back. Like, my mind is telling me this, but this guy's telling me that he cares for me, that he loves me, that he wants for me to succeed, all of that. Then maybe that can pull a stop into something like that. And for them to stop thinking that they're not worthy of love, or they're not worthy of friendship, or a wife, or their kids don't love them. All of these things that our mind tells us. I'm sorry, I know I'm going a little bit, but one of the things that I have realized I'm still in therapy. I am still a patient. And that's one of the biggest things about this. We created this through the eyes of a patient. Mostly every other device that gets put out has been put out through a psychologist, psychiatrist, all of that. Sure enough, we have psychiatrists and therapists that are tinkering with the algorithm and all of that. But the view of what I envisioned is through my eyes, because I know what I needed at that time.
You've been there.
I've been there. I've been at that time where death was my only option. So I understand how that is. But going back to it, going through therapy, I realized that an unkept mind is super dangerous. What I mean by that is that if we allow our minds to give us our reality, somehow it always goes into this negative space. But we need to feed our mind good stuff. We need to feed it faith. We need to feed it words of affirmation. We need to combat all of these negative thoughts that we have, because an unkept mind is a dangerous mind. That's when you start thinking all of these ugly thoughts about yourself. When you start saying that, you know what, why doesn't nobody love me? All of these things, whatever like that are negative. You start feeding yourself that, and that becomes your reality. And that's what I lived with all of my life. I still struggle with it. I still have a lot of insecurities with myself. A lot of it was from my childhood, but I every day, with faith, with love, with my kids, everything like that, I combat that every time. I always feel like I'm not good enough. I always feel like, why are you doing this? What makes you special to sit there and talk about something like this, right? But then I remember, I know why I'm special. I know why I'm supposed to be sitting here, because I have gone through the storm. I have gone through these things. So I should be sitting here. But an unkept mind will always tell you that you're not worthy, that you're not good enough to sit there.
And so this application is going to have those outlets and those that support group
Yeah.
for the patients.
Yeah.
When are you planning on launching it?
So we've done small little pilots.
Okay.
We had a small pilot with a local police department, and that went really, really well. We were able to utilize the information, the feedback that they gave us, and we refined our product. We've had some other users, kind of give us some insight, and we refined.
Okay.
So we have a small pilot. Well, it's one of our biggest pilots with a local hospital. About 250 nurses that are going to utilize the product, whatever like that. That right there is going to be a small little pilot that we're going to do, but we're hoping to release to the general population around May 30th, around there. But there's still a lot that I'm working on. Like we're working on gratitude affirmation statements on there. There's a community aspect that I want to add to it, kind of like a social media aspect to it, what are like a forum type.
Okay.
There's a lot of little things that I want to add. Not little, they're big. They're really, really big. That I want to add.
Sure.
But there's so many modalities out there that work. Why can't I remember I sat down with one of them. We did a pitch for them, and they're like, "Oh, we already have an app for that." I was like, "Oh, okay. Oh, we have an app for that too." I was like, "Okay." So I was like, "So basically, you're telling me you have 3 different apps that my app can do all in one."
Which is like a one-stop shop for
Yes.
everything, which
So-
is awesome.
So that's what I was saying. I was like, well, what if we put all of these modalities that work, and we put them all in one application?
And having the different apps can be so overwhelming.
Yes.
Especially when you're in a state of depression or anxiety, or I've been there too. I've suffered with anxiety, and the last thing you want to do is have more things going on in your brain and having to deal with different, in this case, apps. So I think having everything in a one-stop shop is something that's going to be super helpful. So I think it's a great idea, and I can't wait for it to be launched. And I'm sure I guarantee you that it's going to help many, many people.
That's the population that we're trying to serve, of course, is veterans and first responders. That's my heart. But as well as like, the general population, we want to release it to them as well, because I think it's important for us to have a different outlet, right? Like, I think one of the biggest things that I see so much now is I see so much hurt, right? Like we've become this society where like pain is like, it's just everywhere.
Yeah.
And I just want to create something that's going to be beautiful, that's going to feed people a positive view on life, that is going to give them an understanding of their emotions and how sleep and all of these other things that are all factors in our mental health, how they can help better our mental health, right? We all think that like happiness just happens, like you buy a new car, you buy all this, that's happiness. No, there's a lot of factors that create that happiness. There's a lot of internal things that create that happiness. I know, I don't know if you're about to end, but
No.
happiness to me is a fleeting emotion. And one of the reasons why that is that happiness is something that my body doesn't understand. Like it doesn't have a relationship with it. So when happiness comes, it's a fleeting emotion because I never know when I'm happy.
Right.
My body never tracks it like, oh, this is happiness. It's like all of a sudden, 20, 30 minutes pass. It's like, yeah, I think I'm kind of happy. Then all of a sudden, boom, it goes away.
Yeah.
And I don't want that. Like I want to like have my body understand what happiness feels like, and not being an emotion that my body is it's unknown to it, right?
Or something that can just be kind of covered with something else. It's like a hole that needs to be covered, and then another hole happens. Like you need to really understand what's going on in here and what's going on in here to really understand what makes you happy and what gives you that satisfaction and that passion and that purpose.
I think when you find, this is like when you're on the right spot, right? When your mind and your heart connect, that's when you know you're in God's path. You're on God's path. That's when you know it. And my heart and my mind are connected. And I know that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I know that everything that I went through in my life, the ID blast, the death, all of these things, the broken childhood, all of that was for a purpose so that I can understand pain. Doesn't mean that I'm going to sit there. Doesn't mean God's going to give me this and gave me this so that I can live with it. He gave me so that I can understand it. So I can understand what other individuals are going to need to feel alive, to feel loved, to feel cared for, to all of these things that so many of us are lacking. And it's just, I hate that we live in a society like that. And that's what I'm trying to say is like when you find that connection between your mind and your heart, that is when you know you are on God's path. That's when you know that everything that you're doing is God driven.
There's a quote that says that your true vocation is when your heart's greatest desires meet the world's greatest needs. And I think that's exactly what you're doing. You are really fulfilling your heart's desires into a need that you know the world needs, especially in the communities that you've been a part of, and you know exactly what the need is.
We have a mutual friend, Gio Di Sereta.
Yes.
One of our interviews that I did with her, we talked about creativity. I truly believe, and she stated it as well, I believe that creativity brings us closer to our child self. When you're able to create and do what you love, it brings you closer to the child version of you, where everything was possible, right? When we were kids, I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to do all these things, and all those things, I mean, we didn't know how much school we had to go to. It's possible.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah, that's what I wanted. I wanted to be an astronaut, right? So creativity, art, music, all of these things is what gets you more connected to the child version of you. So I loved my first part of my life, right? Being a protector, being a cop, being a Marine, all of this. I loved those things. This year, I just truly feel like I am more in where I'm supposed to be. Like all of this was supposed to happen.
Right.
But having this here, after understanding that, gave me a totally different perspective of life, of love, of passion, of creativity. And yeah, so like my writing really emulates that. Like I hear people's stories sometimes. So there's a lot of the stuff that I write. Like there's a story that the one that I was telling you about, the woman, she was 20 years in the military. I met with her for coffee. She was going to be on our podcast. And man, her story was impactful. I even told her, I was like, I hope this doesn't offend you. But I'm like, you remind me of a donkey. And she was like, but I was like, let me elaborate here.
Explain.
I was like, the reason why that is because you have been just throwing stuff on you. You just kept walking. It didn't matter how long the road was. It was just throw some more on her. And you just bared that weight and you walked. So I wrote a poem for her. It's called Here I Stand. And I read it to her, I think it was last Thursday. And she told me, she's like, it's crazy that everything that you are saying, it feels like a knife to my heart.
Wow.
But everything you're saying is so true. I met her for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. But I sometimes I internalize their stories. I put it in with mine.
Yeah.
Makes it easier for me to write.
I love that.
So writing is like that creative part. And me is like, it's like that child version of me, I guess you could say.
I'm curious to know, with everything you've been through and with everything that you're doing for the community and with the childhood that you had, how are you living your fatherhood? I'm a mom too. And, I was fortunate enough to grow up with very loving parents,
Yeah.
a wonderful family. But there's still things that I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do that. And I want to do this different, And it's you think that you have it figured out until you have the baby in your hands and you're like, what am I supposed to do now?
Yeah.
So how have you lived your fatherhood? How are you raising your kids?
So I am very open with my children. My oldest daughter, I've never talked to my kids like kids. I've always talked to them like grown-ups,
Okay.
kind of. My oldest daughter, me and her, like sometimes, like I have her in therapy, and I have her in like art with Geo and everything like that. But some of the conversations that she has with like her therapist or her teachers and everything like that, she's like, sometimes I forget that she's 11 years old because she's real deep. And I've always been real deep with my kids.
That's great.
I always wanted my kids to feel open to be able to talk to me about everything, to be able to like tell me of their insecurities, tell me of what they're going through, all of that. So I've always given them the space to be able to talk to me.
Express themselves.
My daughter always, she's like, when I sit down, she's like, Dad, you're gonna have one of those deep conversations, aren't you? And she says it. I'm like, she's like, you're like a pastor, because you just like sit here and you're just like, but I never had that. So I always wanted to have that. I always wanted to have those deep conversations.
Sure.
And trust me, man, like I have a lot of faults as well. One of the biggest things is running a company, running a nonprofit, doing a podcast, doing everything on the podcast, all of these things, still writing. I'm writing my third book right now.
Great.
All of these things, time.
Yep.
It's so difficult.
Yep.
It is so difficult to manage time. And that is one of the biggest things. That's my biggest downfall. A lot of the times my kids will be like there and I'm on my phone. I'm writing or I'm editing something or I'm sending a message to somebody who is looking for therapy or all of this stuff where I'm sending a question or answering a question for our developers, all of this stuff. There's always something.
Yep.
Always something. And it's difficult to balance that. And I tell my wife this, we've had this conversation several times. And it's like, I can't turn my brain off. Like when I get inspired, like this conversation that we're just having, I already have an inspiration and I want to start writing. I can't stop my brain.
Yeah.
And that's the a good thing and a bad thing.
Sure.
Because at night, if I start thinking something,
you're not gonna sleep.
I am not gonna go to sleep. I am not gonna go to sleep.
Yep, that's me too.
Yeah. So it's like I've been I was a terrible father at the beginning. When I was going through everything, I was a terrible father.
Yeah.
I was not a good father at all. Processing through your own traumas and trying to be a father, trying to be present for them, but also your mind is... There's a great video of a guy who's a vet, and he is washing dishes. His family's all behind him. He's there, but his mind is at war. I am there, but my mind is not.
You're physically there, but not really there.
So having that's what I said, with like having connection at that time, it's so hard. And I know they saw it. My oldest and my middle one, they saw a lot. This is the part that always gets me. I was going to a Travis Mills Foundation. It was a in-depth 7-day therapy in Maine. It's one of the things for all you guys out there. I'm not saying I'm healed. I'm still working on myself continuously, always. I was in Maine, and before I went, my middle one, she goes, "Why are you going to Maine, Daddy?" I was like, "Baby, I need to go so I can be a better father to y'all." And she looked at me and she's like, "You're already a good father." So, in the back of my mind, I'm not. There's still a lot that I need to work on. There's still a lot that I need to do. There's still much that I need to do that could be a better husband. And my wife's godsend, man. She is literally a godsend.
That's awesome.
She deserves way better than what I give. And I need her to get the best of me. And the only way to do that is to
Get better.
work on myself. And so when we talk about how I was before, when I was running, when I was hiding, I was a terrible father. I was a terrible husband. Alcohol has always been something that had numbed me more, that I couldn't feel anything. I say that I wasn't present even without alcohol. With alcohol, I was never present.
Yeah.
I was running away from everything. I remember my wife would always tell me that you're drinking too much, and I'm just like, every time she would say that, I would stop for like 2 days,
Okay.
or I would hide it. One of the things that I would do is I would write at night, right? And there'd be like a 18 pack in the fridge or something like that. And I would go off, drink a lot of that 18 pack, come back, go to the store, go buy some more beer, put it in the fridge. So my wife would be like, oh, you didn't drink that much last night.
Yeah.
So alcohol was another thing that, kept pushing me even further away from being the father that I wanted to be. But I've been sober for 2.5 years, and I did it cold turkey.
Wow.
Um,
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's huge.
Thank you. I started off with like going to AA. And I remember I went to AA one time. There was this lady that walked in, and she sat in front of us. And then all of a sudden, she looked at her phone, and then she just stormed out. So I was going like twice a week. And I remember I had therapy that day. And I was reading her a poem to my therapist. I was reading her a poem about what I wrote, and it was about my addiction. So I was going to AA, and she's like, you need to read that poem. And I was like, hell no, I'm not reading that poem. I was like, there's some guys that just got out of jail. You want me to read a poem to these guys? Like, hell no, I'm not going to read that poem. So she's like, you need to. So she's like, promise me you're going to read it. And I was like, yeah, I'll read it. But I was like, I'm not going to do it. So I walked in, right? And there was this guy that walked in, and he had just got out of prison, and he started talking, and I was like, and he was being extremely vulnerable. I'm like, bro, if this guy can do it, I'm going to do it. So I had already talked before and everything like that. And then that girl that had stormed out the 2 days before, she walked in. So after the guy sat down, all of a sudden I just felt myself getting up. I was like, okay, it's going to happen. So I even made a disclaimer before. I was like, this is my therapist told me to do this, so they're like, okay. So I read the poem. That guy who just got out of prison started crying. Another guy next to me was crying. Sat down, and that girl who had just walked in, she stood back up and she goes, thank you so much for reading that. He's like, 2 days ago, I lost my friend to suicide.
Ugh.
And he was the only one that was keeping me sober. I came yesterday, and I didn't feel anything, didn't feel him here anymore. And today, I was like, I'm going to go. And if I feel something, then I won't drink. I won't go off and do drugs, whatever like that. And then you read that poem.
Wow.
And he was a poet. So I told my therapist that.
So powerful.
And she was like, I told you. You needed to read that. So all of these little things, they're not little, they're big.
Yeah, they're huge.
Are
They're huge signs.
ours are what I know, like I'm on the right track.
Yeah.
I know it's gonna be hard. I know, like, it's gonna be hard. But I think as long as I have faith in what God's plan is for me, then anything is possible.
And I do have one last question for you. Then I always like to kind of wrap up the podcast with this. And it's, if you could go back in time and talk to a younger Antonio, maybe that little boy that needed that um, hug from his parents, what would you tell little Antonio about everything, or knowing what you know now and having gone through everything you've gone now? What would you tell yourself at that age?
I've already met him. So let me tell you this. It's crazy. I never knew you were gonna ask me that, but that Travis Mills Foundation program that I went to, there's these things that they go through. They're called the labyrinth. You know what a labyrinth
Yep.
is? So the first one I went, I hadn't forgiven myself for the father that I was, for the husband that I was to my wife. So the first time I went through the labyrinth, that's what I did. And there's one of the instructors that we had, his name was Big Mike. And he's like, Antonio, there's something huge that you need to leave behind. And you know what it is, and you need to leave it. So I was the first one to walk through the labyrinth. I put it down, and you walk out of the labyrinth, and then you meditate. And then everybody walks through the labyrinth, and then everybody gets in the center of the labyrinth together. And then you give the pack to each one of you, right? And that's supposed to represent that your pack is empty. You can move forward, right? I was the last one to come out of the labyrinth. And I looked down, and I could literally see the child version of me there. Because what I needed to leave behind was my broken child. And I said Big Mike. His name was Big John. Big John came behind me, and he goes, Antonio, you need to walk out of the labyrinth. And I was like, I can see him. I can see him right there, and he's reaching out for me. It's like, you need to leave him. So I walked out of the labyrinth. Big John gave me this huge hug. It was like a 6-foot dude that felt like a little teddy bear in him. Gave me this huge hug, and then I walked out, and then they make you write a letter to yourself. And I wrote a letter to my child version of me. And I said, I love you. You were always enough. As much as nobody told you that, you were always enough. And I choose you. Those were the words that I always wanted to hear as a child. I choose you. Those are the things that I want my kids to know. That I choose them. So through everything that I've gone through in my life, I choose them. And I'm going to be the better father, the better husband, because I choose them. I don't choose this broken self that I had before. I don't choose any of that, alcohol, all of these things. I choose them. Because I wish I would have been told that as a child. So that's what I would have told the child version of me.
I love that. And I'm so glad that you have already gone through that process and really telling yourself that, because I think that's so important. And I think that's exactly what you needed to hear when you were that vulnerable little kid.
Those 7 days were the toughest 7 days I ever did. We started off at 6:30 in the morning, and it ended at 8:30 at night.
Okay.
We went through our family history. We went through like our traumas and our gifts, and we looked at a family history of traumas and gifts.
Wow.
All the way down to us. So it's like, and then we did an oath right at the top of us saying no more traumas go down.
Oh, I love that.
It was amazing to see, but at the same time it was heartbreaking. Like, it was just,
I'm sure it was
all of our families have gone through all of this. You know, and like, if we don't stop this,
breaking the cycle. Yeah.
it's just going to continue.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
So it was an extremely powerful 7 days. Right before we started, one of my friends that's on that program sent me a message. And like we still are like all of us texting each other. It was 7 of us. It was 6 of us in the program together. And we all just like, love you, brother. Hope you're doing good. I hope that everything is going well for you, blah, 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 all of this. We had one of the guys who was a SWAT guy. He had like 4 different big position jobs, and all he wanted to be was a father. But he made himself feel that the only way he's important is by having all of these positions and everything like that. But all really he wanted to be was a dad.
Wow.
And I'm like, how are you going to be a dad with all of these different positions? If your big thing that you want to accomplish is be a great dad, then do that. You don't need to be in charge of the SWAT. You don't need to be all of these things. You're already a cop. Just be a father and be a cop. That's all you need to do, right? So he ended up quitting all his jobs, and that dude was like a 6'5" dude, like this big old guy. His name's John. And first time I met him, he was real closed off.
Yeah.
Talking with him, I was like, bro, you are a poet, man. This dude like had like a poet's heart in him. But it's like I said, like all of us are told not to be that way.
Sure.
So now he's starting to write. Now he's starting to do he's
great.
learning. He loved guitar before. Now he's learning guitar again. So it's like, yeah, it was a great 7 days.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Antonio, thank you so much for opening up your heart, your life, and for sharing everything that you're doing for the community. I think it's much needed. And it's great to have somebody that has gone through all those experiences, that has been in those shoes, really service the communities that are in most need.
Yes, ma'am.
So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure meeting you, literally.
Literally
We
for
were
the
just
first
meeting.
time. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you. Where can people find you?
So on Instagram, it's Frontline Strong nonprofit. Our YouTube channel is Frontline Strong Unbroken Podcast. And then TikTok, I think it's Antonio Poetry or something like that. But yeah, that's where they can find me. Our website for our nonprofit is frontlinestrong.org. And for our company, it's weempowered.com.
And that's the app that will be,
that's gonna
so
be the
stay
app.
tuned for the
Stay tuned for the
launch
app.
of the app.
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Well, thank you again. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you
It's a
for having
pleasure
me.
meeting you and talking to you. I think you're definitely inspiring and motivating many, many people out there, more than you probably can't even imagine.
Thank you for that.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us on another episode of Momentos and Voices. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you. Thank you. Adios.